Welcome to Momtroversial, the podcast that dives headfirst into the beautiful chaos of motherhood and dishes on the stuff we wish we'd known and nobody tells you. I'm Alyssa, crunchy mom, all about organic living. I'm organized, opinionated, and your designated wingwoman in any parenting bar fight. Tori and Leah are preparing for international moves, Leah with a newborn, so they're taking a well-deserved break right now. And I have with me an author today, Danielle Frank. She wrote an absolutely hilarious book called A Wine Lover's Guide to Parenting. And it's just a great satire book full of cute little poems, all about, parenting and how your kids can turn out and that kind of thing. And it's hilarious. So, Danielle, do you want to just introduce yourself a little bit?
Sure. Thanks for having me. As you said, I'm Danielle Frank. I work in the wine and spirits industry and have been for over 22 years. And I am, spoiler alert, I'm not a mom, but I was a bonus mom for many years to my ex-fiance's kids. I am a dedicated aunt to my niece and nephew and to many, many of my friends' kids call me Aunt Danielle. And so I married my two worlds and created this humor satirical book called A Wine Lover's Guide to Parenting, because I noticed there were a lot of similarities in wine terminology and basic human behavior. And I wanted to create this homage to all the parents out there as a funny humor book on how to raise your kids to wine terminology. And every time I use a term, it gives the definition. So it's an info guide on wine, learning about wine, and also about teaching your kids to grow up to be good human beings.
It's really cool. And especially, I love how you even have recipes in here. Like, this book kind of covers everything. I will admit that I am not a wine girl. I cook with it all the time, but unless it tastes like juice, I'm pretty much out. Um,
That's the beauty of wine. It's all subjective, right? What you like
yeah.
may be different than what I like. And that's why, as somebody who works in the wine industry, I go out to dinner with my friends and they'll hand me the wine list. I'm like, no, it's just because I work in the wine industry doesn't mean I'm the expert in terms of knowing what you like. You may
hmm
like the really sweet wines that taste like juice, right? Like,
Yeah.
I may not like that. Like, it's all subjective. And that's why I love the idea of making wine knowledge fun and easy, and it shouldn't be daunting. And if you're not into wine, it's not a big deal. It's just a good humor book as well.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. And I love the perspective you're bringing from being a bonus mom and being an aunt, because I know almost three kids in, the aunts in my life are so necessary. They're all flying out. I'm 38 weeks pregnant tomorrow, so they're all flying out to meet new baby, and I cannot wait to just sit on the couch and relax. Well, they do all the playing, because don't get me wrong, I adore playing with my kids, but I'm gonna
No,
need
of
some recovery
course.
time.
Every mom says that you need a village, right? And,
hmm
I may not be raising kids of my own, but I still feel the pull to help influence the kind of human beings we're raising.
Yeah.
And, the kids in my village, it's like I always call it like an outsider's insider's perspective. I might not be their parent, but I'm invested in their well-being and I want to see them grow up to be great human beings. So, and as I said, with all the parents around me and, I see it does take a village and they say that. And it's always great to have another perspective, right? Not only for
Yes.
your kids' sake, right? One parent said to me, like, yeah, like if my kid doesn't feel comfortable to talk to me about drinking or drugs or sex, like I like that they have a network of people that they may feel comfortable going to for those things that they might not feel comfortable going to me about. And then on the flip side of that, I've also heard from parents. I mean, you talk about the recipe in the book that is given to the "Is Your Kid a Mulled Wine" chapter. Now, mulled wines are they're served with spices, so they're spiced, they're heated, they're served in a punch. So that's the recipe I give. But that chapter is about, is your kid spiced, heated, or serving a punch? And it's really about, is your kid a bully? Like, know who they are outside
hmm
of the home. And that chapter, I've gotten feedback from parents saying that that's resonated with them the most because, as a parent, I've heard many people say that you always want to, it's not my kid, not my kid, right?
hmm
And sometimes it is your kid. And that's what one woman said. She said, somebody did tell me something. And of course you don't want to believe it's your kid, but that chapter just was a fun little reminder to be like, all right, maybe it is my kid and he's still young. I mean, he was like 4 or 5 and not punching or hitting, but just, being a little bratty bully. It's just like that really sat with me that I was like, I need to nip this in the bud right now before it becomes something bigger and, a behavior that can't be changed.
Yeah, because we're really not always totally objective when it comes to our kids. We want to be, but it's kind of hard to be and to have those really the people that you trust that love your kids, that will give your kids good, solid advice is so important. And really
Yeah,
will give
because
you solid advice too when you call them and say, uh, okay, this is what I'm thinking. What do you think?
yeah, I mean, because your village and the auntie perspective is we're going to be honest and we have the interest of the kid, at at heart, and it's I always say I hear parents talk like battle hardened soldiers in the trenches, right? And sometimes when you're in the trenches, you can't see what's in front of you. Sometimes that the grape juice you're drinking can one day turn to a fine Cabernet. And like you said, the people that are around you, they're giving you honest feedback because they do care about you. They do care about your kid. And it helps to have that outside perspective sometimes, that outsider
Yeah,
insider perspective.
100%, 100%. Well, let's just jump into it. The first like couple lessons that I kind of pulled about just cultivating like positivity in your children and in their personalities and that kind of thing, I think was hilarious. I mean, lesson 11, you say in the end, sometimes you just get a bad grape. Just kidding. No, you don't. But like just the reminder that, listen, they're kids. They have to learn how to be functional adults. They have to learn how to be functional kids. They're born not knowing anything. Like my husband always talks about how we're molding the minds of the next generation, and he kind of jokes about it. But we also know like it's so true. Like we are molding the minds of the next generation, and that is a huge responsibility.
100%. I mean, that's also why I wrote this book, right? Because when I realized I was engaged and my fiance has kids from his first marriage, so I was a bonus mom for many years. And, I realized ultimately he didn't want more kids, even though he said he would. And so I broke it off. And at this point, I was late 30s. And so all of a sudden, and that's when I wrote this book about 14 years ago. I only just got it to put it to fruition last year. But that was part of the drive to write this book is because I realized, the path to motherhood might not happen for me, but I still want a seat at the table to how kids are being raised to be good human beings. Because as you said, these are the future leaders of our society. And we in America know now more than ever how important it is to have future leaders of society and be good human beings and have empathy and have kindness and
Mhm.
not discriminate. So, these are things that need to be taught at a very young age so they grow up to be good leaders of our society.
No, yeah. Something I think you mentioned like hate, prejudice, bad behavior, that kind of thing. And we talk about it recently. We've talked about it a lot on the podcast because we've had some kind of parenting styles and discipline conversations. And something that I think is so missing from our society is just being able to disagree kindly with each other, right? Maybe you don't agree with me, maybe I don't agree with you, but that's okay. We're entitled to our own opinions as long as they're not actively harming someone else. And I feel like we've kind of lost that skill. It's more like if you disagree with me, you hate me. And I I hope for big for the majority of people that's not the case. We just have different opinions. We have different beliefs. We disagree, but why can't we still be friends?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think a lot of that has been the last few years with like, it is some political messiness. And this last election, I think, has been very polarizing.
Mhm.
And that's where we see like, the strong stances of people one way or the other feeling that way. If you agree with me. And so, again, it's like kids are sponges. And so they're going to see what's around them. And that's why it is important to get them at the very young age to show them like, conflict resolution and accepting other
Yes.
people's opinions and beliefs in a productive way. And because we have lost sight of that for sure.
Yeah, my girls all the time, they're almost 3 and 4.5. And they're in this phase where, they'll just pick at each other and someone will say, one of them will say something and the other one will say, well, no, you're wrong. And then the other one will like double down. And then all of a sudden someone's in tears, like running to me saying, she said this and it's not true. And I'm like, okay, then just tell her she's wrong and move on. Like,
Yeah.
whatever. Go
Yeah,
back to playing.
that's also part of being siblings, the older and the younger one. We
Yeah.
like to torture each other.
It's my younger one she will just get in there. My older one's a little more sensitive and she's just, she said this, mommy, and she's wrong. And I'm like, okay, it's okay for her to be wrong. She'll
Yeah.
figure it out eventually, or she won't. And you know what? It'll be okay. But it is pretty funny. Also on the topic of positivity, we looked at lesson 9, which is about looking at life through rose-colored wine glasses. um, and that is something too, people talk about rose-colored glasses as if it's kind of a bad thing sometimes. And I would argue, um, really kind of what you're arguing, that it's positivity. It doesn't have to be naivety. Naivety? Yeah. You don't have to be naive. You just have to be so sorry. Positive. And I think that is also something that it's I found a lot of these lessons. I was like, yes, and we're losing this. We need these lessons. This needs to be on coffee tables everywhere.
But yeah, I'll read just the tiniest excerpt, if that's
Yeah.
okay from that. Just a snippet from that chapter is teach your child to be optimistic, positive, and bright, to see at the end of the tunnel. You can always find light. Doesn't always mean that everything will always work out just right, but to have a good attitude will help turn it out all right. And in the face of adversity, teach to stay positive and upbeat, so they will not feel like giving up, even though they may face defeat. So yeah, I mean, I think that's important, right? Like you're not always going to win, but you have to, as best as possible. I mean, I think we all go through that in life, right? Well, I've gone through, many life transitions, and it's trying to see the other side that gets you through it and trying to remain positive. I know it's not so easy, but, um,
But it's
all
necessary.
hard. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. My husband and I were just talking about that because my oldest is, your typical oldest daughter. She's a perfectionist. And we've been trying to teach her, you might fail, but that does not mean you are a failure. You don't need to be
Yeah.
perfect. You just need to get a little better each time. And
I always say, I don't like to call failure, but the missteps of failure, it's part of the curriculum, right?
mhm,
It's part of the lessons.
part
You
of
need
life.
those. You need to fall to get back up. You do.
Yeah, it's true. Because if you don't, then everything is handed to you and you have no character development, I feel like, if you don't have any um struggles, any missteps, like you were saying. And I think
Yeah.
too, for us, like the hope for us, I don't know how familiar you are, but on the podcast, we're all non-denominational Christians, which just basically means we believe in the Bible and what the Bible says and not any of the extra stuff that is sometimes added in. And for us, like that is like our hope in Jesus. That is really something we have to hold on to stay positive, because I can see how it can be really hard if you don't have that kind of higher faith and hope to really just like, okay, well, this is all it is and it's not working out for me and that sucks. But for us, it's definitely helped me throughout my life to be able to keep positive. I actually have a tattoo here that says choose joy. Um,
I love that.
yeah.
I love that.
So,
But you know what? For those people that may not be religious, I mean, I'm not highly religious, but like you said, it's that power to believe in. For you, it's your faith. I think it's
mhm,
about power and believing in yourself too, right? Like it's just believing in something to get you through the messy middle. Somebody asked me recently, like, oh, if because I've had lots of life transitions. I moved from New
mhm,
York to LA. Switched careers from entertainment to the wine and spirits. I broke off the engagement. And I was on a podcast the other day, and they said, if you can go back to your, 12, 13-year-old self, what would you do differently? And I said, I wouldn't do one thing different, because every misstep, every step, it's all gotten me to where I am today. It's all made me who I am today. So it's that sort of belief in yourself to keep yourself going as well, So whether it's, finding, a higher power in Jesus or a higher power in yourself or whatever it is that gets you, feeling, to give you belief and strength to keep moving on, I think it's important.
Yeah, it is definitely a huge factor, I think, for sure. Do you want to just read us in one of your chapters just for the fun of it? I think you mentioned lesson
Yeah, lesson
3 because
three.
why not?
Yeah. So lesson 3 is called You Don't Want Your Kids to Ferment. So in the winemaking process, fermentation is when you convert sugar to alcohol. So sugar we think of as something sweet. Alcohol we think of can be, harsh or biting. So this is all about if you don't teach your kids manners, you don't want them to turn from someone sweet into someone harsh. Manners, manners, manners are the key to it all. These lessons need to start even when they're small. Teach them this from day one before they start to crawl. You don't want your kid to be the sour grape in the bunch and turn into a spoiled brat that kids want to punch. When they start talking, make sure they know thank you and please, and to always say bless you when they hear someone sneeze. Please and thank you are an absolute must. Without that, your child's a total bust. There's nothing worse than a child who has behavior that is crude, because it'll continue as they're older and become someone who's rude. People don't take kindly to and aren't nice to those with attitude, because it's very off-putting and puts others in a bad mood, oftentimes causing confrontation and leads to a nasty feud. Wanting to put a little bit of poison in your child's food. Is really how you want your kids to be viewed? Wouldn't you prefer that there's someone who's wooed? Without manners, they'll ferment and turn into someone harsh and biting. They may turn into a kid who's rude, obnoxious, and always fighting. So teach your kids some manners and to have some heart and soul. Without that, your kid may well turn into an a-hole.
It's satire, but it's true. It really is. Even now, teaching my kids when we go to the farmer's market and they get their little honey stick, they have to take their money up. They have to say please and thank you. They have to make eye contact. And the first time I did that, the vendor, she was shocked. She was like I haven't seen that in so long. And I was like, well, I don't know. It just seems like the right thing to do, right?
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy, but you hear about that more and more. I mean, it just seems like such a, it's just basic human behavior, right? I mean,
Decency.
even to
Yeah.
people that say like, you wrote this book as not a parent. Well, you know what? You don't need to be a parent to know good human decency and behavior in human beings. And that's what it comes down to. It's all things that we all want to see in every human being.
hmm Yeah. And I so appreciate it even when other people will yeah, my kids will ask for something and they'll say, "Oh, are you missing the magic word?" Something like that. Some people might see that as like an overstep. I'm like, "No, they are missing the magic word. You tell them."
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. What about lesson 2, where you kind of get into talking about nurturing independence, which I am so big on because I think so many parents today have forgotten that we're raising our kids to be independent adults and to be successful humans. And you have adults that are not adults and that have to check in with their mom for everything or that are living, granted, I lived with my parents on and off until I got married. But um, just the dependency I feel like is kind of becoming more more of a thing, I guess, than it has in the past. And you could totally blame the economy for that. But it
Yeah.
is, I think your lessons in here are really necessary because really, if we don't, you say you need to let your kids breathe, how else will they grow? Really, how else will they grow? We have to teach them that they are capable of making their own decisions. And they might be wrong
Ex-
ones sometimes, and that's okay.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So lesson 2 is much like a fine wine. Kid needs to breathe. And yeah, as you said, with the economy, it's not so easy. Kids are living at home. You can still, you know, um, even as they're adults, there's a difference between coddling them and doing everything for them and then just helping them out, right?
So
Because
true.
obviously with the economy, you could still be helping your kids out, but I just think that, and that comes from my own experience of being raised that's where, this is so, to me, so relevant and poignant because I was not handed everything. I had to do, I grew up with divorced parents and, my dad remarried and they had a son and that son was like, all, he was given everything. And,
Mm,
I had to work for everything, but I always say I wouldn't change a thing. Like it's taught me my work ethic. It's made me who I am.
yeah.
It's made me to push, and now I've, built a successful career because I've had to do it all myself, because I've had to, stand on my own 2 feet, and I didn't have anything to fall back on. And I think that's an important thing to, a lesson to teach kids is that, they need to learn to get back up on their own 2 feet because one
Hmm.
day, sadly, you won't be there for them.
Hmm.
So kids need to know how to stand on their own 2 feet on their own.
Yeah, that must have been so hard as a kid, but so valuable into adulthood. I mean, clearly, like you have a book, you have, like you said, a successful career. Like that is not something that most people have, I would say.
Yeah, and that's why I said before, what would I change when, if I could go back and do it again? Of course, at the time, do I wish, when my friends got a car, do I wish that was handed to me too? Of course. But that's why I say I wouldn't change a thing because it's literally made me who I am and given me the skill set and the tools to, be an independent, successful person on my own.
Hmm. Yep, for sure. You say too, they need to know life's about misses in order to appreciate when there's a hit. They should know there will be bumps in the road, but you can't ever quit. And I love that. Just from what we were talking about because it really it does make you appreciate your successes so much more when you've experienced the losses or the misses that have maybe come before them or even that will come after them. I think, you experience the misses before and then you get that hit and it just feels so good. And then maybe you have another miss later on, but you remember that that's not the end of it because you are capable and um you can get that win again.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, I mean, like I used the example before, like I remember I was in high school and college and everybody's like, had a car from their parents and sure, I wish I had a car. But I'll never forget, when I moved from New York, because I didn't need a car in New York City once I left college. But when I decided to move from New York to LA, I bought my first car. And man, what a feeling that is. Like, I was so proud and you appreciate it so much more than, like, as much as it would have been nice to have it handed to me. God, the value of just doing something on your own, I think it just holds so much more weight and appreciation.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I totally agree. I love it. My parents, they did a great job of um they did definitely provide really, really well for us. But they also did hold us accountable. When I lived with my parents after I had a full-time job, I still paid them rent. Um,
It's
and it,
great.
it wasn't a lot, but it was a responsibility, right? And you know, they didn't give me my first car, but they did give me a really good deal on my first car.
That's fantastic. Yeah.
And so yeah, that was a huge blessing and really really they really did a great job of setting us up for success while also requiring us to take responsibility for a lot of that success.
Yeah, that's a great way to really teach them, give them giving them the skill set to, have some independence while they're taking care of you,
Hmm.
it's, I think it's great.
Yeah, they practiced a lot of when we were really little, just giving choices. You know, a 3-year-old doesn't need a whole ton of choices, but
Right.
we started with a little choices and we've seen it in our own kids. We give them little choices and as they get older we've given them bigger and bigger choices. Now my 4-year-old, she goes to quiet time, but she can choose whether she sleeps or not, but she's not allowed to just throw fits if she doesn't take a nap and she's tired. And we'll keep trying to give them bigger and bigger choices as they grow, to really hopefully foster that capable feeling in them.
Yeah,
Yeah, I love
that's
that.
great. It's all about those little baby steps. And I love that. Just giving them, additional choices. It's empowering them. I always think, again, I think about the way I was raised, like, you know, giving them some autonomy and like this chapter, room to breathe.
Mhm.
really, I think about my friends in high school, it was those that had like the strictest parents, the ones that, strict curfew and this and that. They were the ones to rebel first. I didn't have like, my parents gave me a little wiggle room to make my own decisions. And I was like the last one to drink alcohol, the last one to,
Me
lose my
too.
virginity. It's like I had nothing to rebel against. I think when I saw that framework and I see it with my friends' kids now. It's like when you give them a little wiggle room and the trust, they also don't, kids start to realize they don't want to break your trust. They don't want to lose, that they don't want you, they don't want to give up the trust that you put in them and they don't want to, so I think giving them a little breathing room helps foster, greater trust between you two and greater development on their end.
Yeah, yeah. And it's a delicate balance, right? Like just that right amount to where
Yeah.
they feel like they are capable, independent human beings, but also I don't want to give you enough breathing room that you end in jail. Okay.
Absolutely. And that's your job as a parent, right? Like
Yeah,
each kid's different. So, parenting, you guys have the hardest job on the planet, but parents, that's for you to figure out how much wiggle room to give them based on who they are becoming as, as a person and, how much of the leash you can extend based on what they've shown you of who they are.
so true. So true. Yeah. I love your lesson 8 about just having depth and giving your child depth. It talks about um, giving your child depth and like a well-rounded worldview. And I'm curious, what are some of your favorite ways to expose kids to different cultures, foods, just from right at home, showing them that the world is a beautiful, just charcuterie board of people, if you will.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, yeah, like you said, this is try and give your child a nice punt. Punt is the indentation at the bottom of a wine bottle, so it gives it depth. And so, yes, this is about giving your kids depth. And yeah, it's not so easy. You got a lot of responsibilities with kids. It's not so easy to just hop on a plane and go travel and see the world to show them, But yeah, there's so much you can do at home, like you said, like you know expose them to different foods, read books about different cultures and different societies and different beliefs and show them that, we're all human beings. We all sleep under the same star of skies. And it doesn't make somebody better or worse if they look different. We're no better. So teaching your kids to, have a worldly view on, I think will just also really create less ignorance and create less um, discrimination and and strife in that way because they'll be more open-minded that there's other people, there's other cultures. Like I said, we all look different. Somebody may speak a different language. So once the more kids are exposed to different things, the more they become accepting of it. It's kids that are sheltered that, just only know their worlds. I think that then when they come across something that seems different, that's where, the bullying comes into place because they haven't been accepting of something that's different than to what they know.
Yeah, and I think that's so funny that you mentioned being sheltered because I was homeschooled my whole entire life. I was homeschooled. And normally you hear like, oh, those homeschool kids are so sheltered, whatever it is. But I remember um, during all the political unrest in 2020 or so, um, they were really harping on the fact that public school didn't teach kids diversity, right? They didn't, there was the whole Juneteenth was becoming a federal holiday, that kind of thing. And no kids knew what Juneteenth was because that's ridiculous. And I remember thinking, I learned about this. Like my mom taught me about this. She made sure that we had a curriculum where we learned about all sorts of different cultures and religions. And it was so meticulously crafted to make sure that we were getting an actual full education instead of just something that's tailored to kind of fit the status quo, if you will.
It's
And
amazing. Your mom sounds amazing.
she's awesome. She's great. She'll be here in 1 week and then I can have my baby. um, but yeah, she did a really, really good job with that. And we've really tried to continue that with our kids because I saw the benefit in myself of everything that I was able to learn. And, we lived in Korea for over 2 years because my husband is in the military and we got that opportunity, but we took that opportunity and it wasn't perfectly wonderful. But uh, there were so many great things about it. My my youngest daughter was born there and she ate kimchi like a Korean. Okay. It was ridiculous.
That's
We got to
amazing.
go to Thailand. We got to go to the Philippines. We got to really be a part of these cultures. Um, and we're big, if we're going to go somewhere, we want to stay in an Airbnb and kind of experience the culture, right? And my kids will eat anything. Hopefully, I think because of that. Maybe not. Maybe they just have good palates.
That's amazing. And yeah, and
But
parents,
yeah,
like, if parents are sending their kids to school and they're not homeschooled, that's right. They can still have those moments when the kids come home and teach them about,
for
find out what
sure.
your kid's learning in school. But yeah,
Yes.
I think that's brilliant what your mom did. And it's just, yeah, I mean, exposing kids to as many things as possible makes things less taboo, right? I feel the same way
Yes.
about like, it's like, even just, I found that with drinking. Like, my dad would go to dinner and he'd have an after dinner drink and, he'd have his Baileys and he'd be like, you can have, I'd be like, I'd have a sip. Like, I don't know, when you make that, when things aren't as taboo. I mean, that's why like people in France, like their kids like drink wine in high school or like at the dinner table, they're like having wine at 10. It's not so taboo. And you don't see alcoholism rates like as high in other countries because I feel like just anything when something's taboo or it's not talked about or you're not exposed to it, then it becomes this thing that's out there that you don't really have a full grasp of.
Yeah, totally. Just talk, like literally just talking to your kids about something and
Yeah.
making it not as big of a deal. Uh
Yeah.
my husband today was grinding his coffee and the girls were like, "Can we have a coffee bean?" And we were like, "I guess we have no real reason to say no to this, right?" Like, sure. And my oldest looks at me, she goes, "Mom, it's delicious." And I was like, "That's weird, but okay, you go, girl." You know, am I going to give my kids coffee on the
Right.
regular? No. But they're still down for their naps right now, so it couldn't have hurt them that much.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, it's pretty funny. Well, let's go in to one of the final lessons we'll talk about, and we haven't talked about them all. So if you want to hear them or read them for anyone listening, we'll have Danielle's website and the Amazon link to her book linked in the show notes because it really is a great coffee table book, conversation starter. It's fun. But lesson 10 is que sera, sera. What will be, will be. And it's all about, as it turns out, we can't control everything about our kids, right?
Yeah. This is, just sort of tongue in cheek, hey, srah, srah. It's just give yourself permission to just know that, yeah, sometimes you can't control and perfect it all. You and your kid are going to figuratively fall. Or sometimes you just have to accept things as they happen because no one ever knows. You can't predict when a hit comes your way or when it throws you some major blows. Yeah. So it's just all about like, you not only telling yourself, but teaching your kids to like be malleable. Life's going to throw punches at you.
Mhm.
Um, and if you fall, it's okay. You're going to get back up.
Yeah, give ourselves a break. As moms, I feel like
Absolutely.
we are really, as women, I feel like we're so quick to tell someone else, don't stress about it. It'll be okay. Like, you can do this. And then we will turn around and just hold ourselves to the absolute highest, most ridiculous standard. Don't get me wrong. I think we should be holding ourselves to high standards. But sometimes the
Absolutely.
standard is crazy. And I've found that if I can just let it go and say, you know what, and just look at my girls and say, Mommy, sorry that she just yelled at you like that. You know, Mommy's having, big emotions. Mommy's really frustrated right now. Mommy's in a lot of pain because there's a baby sitting on her pelvis right now. um, but mommy shouldn't have done that. I should have used kind words and I'm going to work on that. And just being able to do that, I feel like often will help me let it go from the guilt that I'm holding in about it. Um, because It really, like, you can just get so in your head about it for yourself,
Yeah,
even
true.
as you
Yeah.
completely absolve your kids because they apologized and that's what you taught them to do, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So to that point, yeah, case throws out. Sometimes you just have to let it breathe and give yourself permission to know it's going to be okay.
Mhm. Yep. Yeah. And really, sometimes that really is where a glass of wine at the end of the day comes in, right?
There you go. 100%.
Yep. Right now I'm all about mocktails, but
Yeah. Soon enough. Soon enough, you'll be back.
soon enough. Yep. Well, something that we always do to close our episodes here is we have a momtroversial moment. And it can be something past, present. It can be an controversial moment if you feel the desire. But it's just something that made us laugh, something that maybe made us cry, anything like that. Just as a funny little ending. So do you have a momtroversial moment for us?
Yeah. I think it just goes hand in hand with what I was saying. It's like the way I was raised, um, you know, like my dad would sometimes curse or, give me a taste of the Baileys. Oh, my dog. I hope you didn't hear that. he's
Don't worry.
he's got a controversial moment as well. Um, but
We love a good puppy.
yeah. So as I was saying, the way I was raised, it taught me that perspective of like, it's okay if you expose your kids sometimes to things. And I think it just, doesn't make things as taboo. And I was just thinking about when I was saying that, like, I remember when my sister and my niece came out to visit me and she was younger and we took her to Disneyland um, she like we had everything. We were waiting for the shuttle and we had all these toys and this and that. And we had the soda and we had the cotton candy. And I remember like the soda was falling in the bag with the souvenir stuff. And my sister and I are just like, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit. And we see my little niece who's like 3. She's like, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit. And we're just trying so hard not to laugh. Inside we were just we were looking away. I just find it so funny when kids curse a little bit, but you know what? We didn't make too big of a deal about it. And like, that's why, like, we knew we're like, don't make a big deal. Don't be like, no, 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 because then she
Yeah.
probably would continue to say it the rest of the trip. We just like kind of looked aside, had a great laugh, laughed about it later over a glass of wine when she was sleeping. But yeah, I love that memory of her. And sometimes, yeah, if you just don't make things taboo, then they won't want to keep doing it.
There you go. I love it. That's hilarious. We're hoping to get
Mhm.
our girls out to Disney while we're on the West Coast.
Nice.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, my controversial moment is actually from earlier today. We have a farmer's market every Thursday, and usually I take the girls to get their honey sticks and just some produce and milk and that kind of thing. And today I went on my mandated midwife walk in the morning, and we came in and I was like, girls, I literally like I cannot move. Like my body is not working right now. And so Reagan, my oldest, goes, well, mom, don't worry, dad can carry you. And then KK, Kennedy, my youngest, she goes, and mom, God will help you. God will help you, mommy. You can go to the farmer's market. And I was like, you're not wrong, but also I'm not going to the farmer's market. So my wonderful husband ended up taking them.
Oh,
Uh,
that's great. Kids say the
yeah,
cutest things. They really
they're
do.
so funny. They are really so funny. Dad can carry you. Like, do you know how difficult that is right now?
Yeah, dad is like, listen, she's 38 weeks pregnant. Don't offer my services right now.
Yeah. Is there an adult stroller? I'll get in that. Oh, well, thank you so much, Danielle, for coming on. Do you want to just give us a little overview? And again, we'll have this all in the show notes, but where we can find you, social media, any of that kind of thing?
Yeah, absolutely. You can find my book on Amazon.com and BarnesandNoble.com, A Wine Lover's Guide to Parenting, The Fine Art of Wine and Wine Management. You can find me at DanielleFrankAuthor.com and on Instagram at Create a Great Story.
I love it. I love it. Thank you again so much for coming on. This has been such a fun conversation. And if anyone's looking for a little Christmas gift or birthday gift or coffee table gift, this is it. You will laugh. I promise.
Thank you. It's
Yeah.
a great baby shower gift. You pair it with a onesie,
Yes.
you're done.
Oh my
Mother's Day
gosh, I
gift with
love
a
it.
bottle of wine. Well, yeah, thank you so much for having me on. Your podcast is great. Good luck with the birth of your next baby.
Thank you.
Can't wait to hear all about it.
Yeah, thank you so much. And thank you everyone for listening. We really appreciate y'all. And we'll talk to you next time. See you later.